Philadelphia News, team of my heart.
Paul George was supposed to be the missing piece, the veteran star who'd finally take the Sixers over the hump. Instead, his contract already looks like a disaster. Injuries, inconsistency, and now trade talks. Is it time to cut ties and move on? Sixers news and trade updates right now. You had high hopes. Everyone did. The moment the Sixers locked in Paul George on that massive deal, it felt like the front office finally cracked the code. A real shot at the title. A big three that could match anyone in the league. But now, all that excitement has crumbled into pure disappointment. The Sixers, once seen as an undeniable contender, have spiraled into one of the worst teams in the league. And George? He hasn't just failed to live up to expectations, he's become a problem. Philadelphia might have to fix sooner rather than later. This season has been a disaster. And not just because of the record. Injuries have piled up like they always do, crushing any momentum before it even starts. But even when the roster has been healthy, something has felt off. Chemistry, effort, coaching. You've seen it yourself, this team doesn't look right. And at the center of it all is George, struggling to find his rhythm. Missing shots he used to make with ease. And looking every bit like a player whose prime is in the rearview mirror. But here's the real problem, it's not just this season. The Sixers are trapped. That 4-year max contract is a ticking time bomb. And unless the front office acts fast, it's only going to get worse. George is already 34. He's already showing signs of decline. And with the way his deal is structured, Philadelphia has little to no financial flexibility to fix things in free agency. That means no significant roster upgrades, no major reinforcements, no easy solutions. So what's the answer? There's really only one. Trade Paul George. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? The Sixers just signed him. Moving on this quickly would be an admission of failure. But what's worse, admitting a mistake now? Or dragging it out for 3 more years while the championship window slams shut? If George isn't the player they thought he was, keeping him around only makes things worse. And let's be honest, you've seen him on the floor. Is this the guy who's going to bring a title to Philadelphia? Or is he just another big name who came and went, leaving behind nothing but frustration? It won't be easy. That contract is a nightmare. And not many teams are lining up to take on an aging star with declining production. But if there's one thing the Sixers can't afford to do, it's sit back and hope things magically fix themselves. There's no time for patience. No time for optimism. This is about survival. The only way out? Get aggressive. Find a trade. Of course. The biggest question is, who would even take on George's deal? What would it take to move him? And would the Sixers have to give up even more just to escape this mess? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should the Sixers trade Paul George now or give him another shot next season? Trading Paul George won't be simple. His contract is already being labeled one of the worst in the league. And with his current level of play, it's hard to imagine any team willingly taking on that kind of financial burden. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and if the Sixers truly want to avoid a long-term disaster, they have to be willing to do whatever it takes to make a deal happen. The biggest problem: Philadelphia has little leverage. Every front office in the league knows that the Sixers need to make a move. That puts them in a vulnerable position, where teams will try to lowball them, forcing them into impossible choices. Do you attach draft picks just to get rid of the contract? Do you package young talent? Do you take back another bad deal just to make something work? None of those options are ideal. But waiting around isn't an option either. Here's the nightmare scenario. The Sixers keep Paul George, banking on a bounce-back year. But what if that doesn't happen? What if his decline is real? What if this season wasn't just a fluke, but the start of a downward spiral? If that's the case, by next year, his trade value could be completely gone. And then what? You're stuck. Locked into a max contract with an aging star who's only getting worse, while other contenders pass you by. But let's look at the flip side. There's still a chance to fix this if the Sixers act now. Some teams might be willing to take a chance on George. Maybe a desperate franchise. One that needs a veteran presence to stay competitive. Maybe a team that believes this season was just a bad break and that George can still be the all-star he was just a year ago. And if the Sixers can sweeten the deal, whether it's with a young player or a future pick, maybe, just maybe, there's a way out of this mess. But here's the real question. Is the front office bold enough to admit they made a mistake? It's not easy to swallow your pride and undo a major signing just months after making it. But winning organizations don't waste time on bad decisions. They correct them fast. And that's exactly what Nick Nurse and the Sixers front office need to do. The longer they wait, the worse it gets. Every game George plays poorly, his value drops. Every missed shot, every slow defensive rotation, every moment he looks a step behind, the other teams see it. They take note. And before long, the Sixers might not even have the option to trade him anymore. That's why urgency is key. The offseason is Philadelphia's one and only chance to flip this situation around. But what does a realistic trade even look like? Who would be willing to take a chance on George? And what price would the Sixers have to pay just to escape this mess? Let me know in the comments, what should the Sixers do? Hold on to George and hope for the best, or cut their losses and move on? Let's be real, this won't be an easy fix. The Sixers can't just snap their fingers and make Paul George's contract disappear. But waiting around, hoping for a miracle, that's how teams get stuck in mediocrity for years. If Philadelphia is serious about contending, the front office needs to act like it. That means being aggressive, creative, and even a little ruthless when it comes to finding a trade. So, what does that actually look like? First, you have to identify the teams that might be willing to take a risk on George. Maybe it's a franchise that's desperate to stay competitive and needs a veteran presence. Maybe it's a team with an expiring contract they want to swap out. Or maybe, just maybe, there's a front office out there that still believes in George's ability to bounce back. But here's the catch. No team is going to take him for free. If the Sixers want to make this happen, they have to be willing to part with assets. And that's the painful part. Draft picks, a young player, some kind of package that makes swallowing George's contract worth it. That's the reality of the situation. The Sixers front office has to ask itself, is it worth holding onto Paul George just to avoid giving up extra assets? Because if they wait too long, his value could drop so low that they have to give up even more just to get out of this mess. The longer they hesitate, the worse it gets. And look, George could bounce back next season. That's the gamble. Maybe a full off-season of rest resets everything, and he comes back looking like the all-star he was just a year ago. But do you really want to bet the entire Sixers' future on a 34-year-old recovering his prime form? Does that sound like a strategy that's going to bring a championship to Philadelphia? It's time to make a move. It's time to take control of the situation before it controls you. The Sixers can't afford to waste another season. Not with the Eastern Conference getting stronger. Not with other contenders making moves. And certainly not with a contract that could turn into a complete disaster if they don't act fast. So now, the ball is in the Sixers' court. Do they make the bold move and trade Paul George now? Or do they sit back, cross their fingers, and hope that this somehow works out? Let me know in the comments, what's the right move? Trade George now or gamble on a bounce-back season? And if you love Sixers news and trade updates like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a thing.